Hi, welcome back to the Beauty Authority. I'm Tatiana Bido, and today we're diving into one of the most requested topics: how to approach makeup and skincare when your skin starts aging. And joining me is celebrity makeup artist Tim Quinn, who's worked with some of Hollywood's most recognizable faces. Tim, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you. So good to see you.
It's so great to see you. And you have worked on so many amazing women, from Diane Lane to Glenn Close and your close friend Alana Stewart. Do you have a favorite celebrity moment that really stands out to you?
It's funny. Alana's a Florida resident now. I have a couple that really just popped to mind. One was so crazy. Years ago, I was I used to travel all over the world with Mr. Armani, but this one special event we're doing, it was called like One Night Only. We're in Beijing. And Tina Turner, who was a really good friend of his, of course, at the time, was the guest of honor. And they pulled me from backstage and were like, you have to go to her room and get her ready, which, believe me, was like not an issue. I couldn't wait. But it was so wild because I got to her suite. Her husband answered, the door, such a gentleman. They were playing her music everywhere. She came in and it was just like so surreal to me because all around her were like the custom Louis Vuitton cases with her wigs. And she was amazing. Like she just sat, we did her makeup. It was kind of like a hurried thing. And then she looked in the mirror and she's like, oh, you're the only person since Kevin Aquan that got my brows right. And I was like, oh, thank God, because the brows are everything. So, um, and then she was so kind. She's like, I'll give you a lift back to the theater. I'm like, oh, all right. So I hopped in and she looked at me. She's like, you can't go without a jacket. So we had to swing by an Armani store so I could run in and get a jacket and then walk the red carpet. It was like one of like my most extraordinary evenings ever. It was so crazy. And that was
That
only equaled
I
by
would
my
never
first,
forget that.
right? It was like, and of course we got there and the whole backstage, which was I was responsible for, I kind of forgot for like the hour I was with her and like got back and had to go back into like, work mode. But it was extraordinary. And, I had the same thing kind of happen with Glenn Close too. The very first time I worked with her, she had me come up to her house. She had a house up in Bedford at that time. And I walked into the farmhouse, she's like, just come in, whatever. And in the kitchen was like, I don't know, somebody was making soup. And all I could think of was Fatal Attraction with the bunny. I couldn't focus when I first met her. But those are like whacked out things that always happen to me.
That's incredible. You have such amazing stories, and you worked with so many incredible women, and you know what makeup to use as we mature. So, what are some tips that as we get older, we should be looking at when we're approaching makeup?
Well, it's interesting. I think a big part of it, of course, is texture and tone. Those are like the two things that, our skin texture changes, our skin tone changes, and you kind of have to pay attention to that, right? And I feel like with, as we age and mature, we need to keep some luminosity and some bounce in our skin. So I always look for things that reflect light, that add like a slight sheen or shimmer to the skin, which gives a more youthful appearance. Um, and a lot of that just comes down to texture and how, and of course, taking into account where you live, like if you live in a humid climate, you have your skin's it's a little more forgiving to to the skin than if like you're living in the mountains in a very arid, it's super dry, you need more
Right.
hydration.
Okay, so what should we be doing as we age for our makeup? What changes should we be thinking about to make it look better or update it as we get older?
I think one of the things when as our skin matures and we age is we're worrying about how we keep the hydration level and the glow in our skin, and of course countering that with our procedures, and where we highlight and use lift, um, using more like nourishing products for the skin is important. Maybe keeping like more the treatment at night, and I often like use like more like oils underneath the skin to give it like a little extra glow and bounce. Um, Maybe changing the texture of our foundation and how we use it. I think is like the less mattified we look, the more there's a youthful appearance, and the placement, of course. As gravity starts, we have to kind of combat that. It's really just shadow and light we're playing with.
Yeah. So really stay away from matte foundations if you're starting to notice creasing, wrinkling, dryness.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of the things that happens most when I, encounter women and they talk about like, I feel like I look in the mirror, I look like I aged overnight. Usually it's, too dense of a foundation. So, the idea is not to try and like mask our skin. It's just to kind of even out the tone a little using more fluid and liquid. I mean, sometimes I only use concealer on people, which sounds strange, but we
Right.
always shade, I don't want to destroy the beauty market, but like you have to be careful with how much product you use.
Yeah.
Especially like one of the things that happens that the hollows happen under the eye, so maybe it's shifting. So we're not concealing like a raccoon the whole eye. It's following where the hollow is. And then these little bits of lift at the edges, as you think about you see these things on TikTok, you see these kids doing, and it's funny because when you watch what they're doing, it's interesting because it's a little theatrical on them, but when you actually apply these techniques to your face as a normal aging human person, they actually work because you're just hitting the spots where the light's going to hit you, which gives a lift.
Two questions about the eyes.
Yeah,
As you get older, as I've gotten older, I've noticed so much hooding that I have to adjust how I make the shape of my eyeliner because it's not where I was doing it 10, 15 years ago, doesn't
right.
exist anymore. And secondly, there's a sort of look that you get from sticking to the makeup and the techniques that you used in the decade where you were younger. So it's almost like my eyes are hooded and I also don't want to look so severe with the same techniques I used to use. What's your advice?
Yes, and it's so interesting, Tatiana. That's like probably one of the things that I can change the most quickly on someone when they come. I love to see a woman come with her makeup how she does it. Because generally, as you're so true, they learn it one way and that's the way it stays. So
Right.
when you take the makeup off and you start and you kind of examine where the eye is, usually it's the liner is the easiest thing to change. Is kind of building it towards the outer lash line instead of trying to do a cat eye all the time or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Adding depth like at the lash line. That's when you see a lot of people tend to do the lashes a little thicker on the outer edges because it gives a lift. It's the same you do it
Right.
with your liner, softly shadowing the hood and that's where again we're going to stay away. That's one of the places I love a little bit of a matte foundation or even your same cheek color or bronze just to add that uniformity and kind of a color consistency. A little bit of shimmer on the inner part of the eye really does a lot to brighten. And
Yeah.
then, of course, it's really about the brows with a hooded eye too, because you can really completely define a shape of an eye by re-examining where your brows are. Because the same time that your hooding is starting is usually when the brows decide to jump ship too. So it's kind of like a little lift, a little highlight there when you talk about the lift and the highlight. So inner corner right under the like right under the brow bone at your pupil. And then when you finish your liner, take a little concealer and kind of draw a line at a 45-degree angle up to the tip of the brow and blend it. And it does a lot to give that illusion of a lift.
Yeah. You can do a lot with just shaping, and sometimes less is more. And that's kind of the idea as we
Yeah.
get old.
Funny because, I was just talking to a brand in New York that was doing some new palettes. And that's one of the things that happens is people get their hands on these, 4 quad shadows and they think you have to use all 4, like in the little Venn diagram thing.
Right.
Sometimes, 1 or 2 shades, you can do a lot more. Use your pencil and some mascara and give some lift and shape.
Okay, what about lips? This is also a kind of, difficult area because I think sometimes that's another technique. If you were overlining your lips in the 90s or you were, using frosted lipstick 10,
Yeah.
15 years ago, what are some of the things we shouldn't be doing anymore, considering we're aging and getting lip lines and all of the fun stuff that happens to us as we get older?
I think, it's one of these things, especially coming into fall. I've noticed there's like this trend towards like these um, kind of goth 90s colors back again, which, the temptation is to wear them because you wore them before. So now you have to be a little more cautious because a dark lip can make the lip look smaller if it's not done right. One thing is that the lining, I rather match the lip liner to the color of your lip than whatever lip color you're doing. So
Okay.
that there's some kind of a a little bit of an overdrawing, which is fine. It's not going to be as noticeable as when you used to see like that dark line with like the lip color kind of plumping
Right.
out.
But
Um,
it helps maybe diffuse some of those wrinkles and lines.
and so it makes it less obvious, right?
Mhm.
And I think that when you're applying your lips, it's important to kind of take a look in the mirror and see where the shape is, so that you're not overemphasizing the inner corners and dragging it down. It used to be, when you're younger and you have fuller lips, it's so easy to line the whole lip
Yeah.
and you can put the color on. But as you lose some volume, you might have to like cheat a little, just only on the corners, less in the plumpy part, and kind of make them look more balanced, and then keep your tone even, and just the touch of the gloss in the center, which is going to give that the pout back. And then I always loved using a concealer on a tiny brush, like underlining the lip to give that
Yeah.
little lift forward, and the same with the cupid's bow. It's an easy place to kind of cheat that idea, right? And the same thing like here at the corners of the lip, be careful not to do too much where you see people, overdrawing the highlighter, so you start to have like almost like a clownish effect. You really just want to carry it out a little to where the marionette line might start, so it'll just kind of blend out.
It's so funny, the older you get, the more you learn where the light hits your face, but I just remember when I was 20, I would just use one powder foundation all over
Oh
my
yeah,
face and just keep it moving.
yeah. Now everything
Now
out and go. It's like it's so
now
many,
I'm like Michelangelo looking at the light, looking at my angles, what looks best, where do I put it?
and it's
Um,
important to do your makeup in front of a light, because that's really where the clue comes. That's why when you have your makeup done, you always see the the client is facing into the light, because it's so easy for the makeup artist to see the where the shadows are, and it's the shadows that you want to blast away.
and then you were talking about the skincare that you use underneath and using a little bit of oil maybe to rehydrate the skin. What do you use? Your skin is glowing. You look amazing. What do you recommend for a daily hydrator to give you that glow?
Well, first of all, it's easier for men because we shave every day, so the cleansing process is important. And I feel like using a gentle exfoliator here and there, but quite honestly, when I apply my skincare routine, I use an eye oil, and of course, I use my little halo. I
Yes.
but I put it on the
Do you
ocular.
have one there? Show
Yeah, this.
Yes. I
So
love
this
that
is
product so
literally
much.
how I put it on. I put a little drop, and then I spend, while I'm talking on the phone or whatever I'm doing, massaging around the whole eye and just really working it in. Now, if I'm really special feeling, I use like either the Lima laser or something to kind of really boost it in. And then I have clients who just use this as their whole face oil. I'll
Yeah,
put it.
I love that eye oil. I've used it all over, not just the eye
It's
area.
thin enough, and it doesn't disturb anything. And then you can put your treatment. But I feel like, and I've always said this when I'm doing women's makeup, I spend more time on the massaging, because
Mhm.
when you're doing that, you're bringing the lift back of the blood in circulation into your skin, and then all of a sudden your skin comes alive, and you don't need as much concealer or whatever it might be. Of course, I do always put an SPF on, because it doesn't matter where you're going anymore, or where you live. Even if you're hiding from the sun, the damage is really coming from these overhead lights and the sun. So that's important. But the hydration level, once you see the skin has that bounce back, then you can kind of just add, touches of color where it's needed. I feel like
And
less is more.
and what else should we be using? What's in your kit? What do we need to run out and buy that you think is really, really good for people with mature skin?
So I love using any kind of vitamin C or retinol at night. I love it. There's actually, it's funny because I've been using a lot of Sisley lately, Sisley,
Mhm.
because I like the plant-based products, right? Because I feel like they really hydrate. A plumper, I love. I think that's like my grandmother when I would sit and watch her do her makeup. And the night cream
Yeah.
was a beauty routine that I think kind of got forgotten about. And I feel like lately I've seen such a return to people really using a rich cream at night,
Yeah.
to really super hydrate the skin. Um, obviously using an eye treatment, the 111 skin, those under eye
The
little
patches.
patches,
Yeah.
extraordinary because I love them because on any client I can put that on, do their eye makeup. You take that off, it kind of gives you the guideline where where the shadow ends and where the concealer should be. Um, if you're not using a good cleanser, it's important. Something like a little more creamy, so it's not stripping the skin is great at night. Um, and then using any kind of those treatments that you can, whether it's the red light mask, I think are extraordinary. I use those. I'm obsessed with the Lima laser. Like
Yeah.
I, I'm surprised I'm not sitting here using it. Quite honestly, um, I'm in the colony a lot, and when I do clients, it's kind of like my friend Yvonne who does the beauty sandwich. Have you ever seen
Yes,
his?
the beauty sandwich.
It's the manipulation of not just like the product, but how it penetrates into the skin. And I think if you can have some of those little tools at home, it it kind of helps to like extend the length of time before you have to go in for your next, consultation.
Right. It all works together hand in hand, right?
It does. And I
Yeah.
don't think most of us don't spend enough time on our own skin. And I think a lot of people that are so busy, you know, caregivers that are trying to cover up, it's the more time, you can spend on the hydration and, drink your water and your tea at night, put your heavier creams on. When you wake up in the morning, I guarantee your skin is glowing in a different way.
Absolutely, 100%, and you feel better, and you look not only look better, you're more relaxed, and you have spent that special time on yourself, so and it shows.
Yeah, I think there's no greater luxury, really. I mean, how many handbags can you have? So
Right.
many.
Well,
But
a lot.
yeah, you can really
Let's not
plan
count them, Tim, let's not count them.
now, or we just go back in the closet and bring them back out. I feel like,
It's
and that's important, is to edit too. Now, like as you change seasons, to go into your beauty drawer, and it's a little habit I have when I go to people's homes, is to go in and edit out because I think for some reason that if you don't use it, it doesn't mean 3 years from now when you find it again, it even is valid
right.
or any kind of like benefit. So it's important to kind of buy what you need and use it.
That's my hobby though, is collecting
Yeah,
makeup products
I
and
see people do it
skincare
all the
products.
time. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh Lord, this cream is from 4 years
I
ago.
might need to use this one day in the next, 6 months, so I can't toss it, so
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
yeah, yeah. Well, you've seen it all, so you know.
Yeah, or using things that, as time goes on, it just does the color doesn't work for you anymore. Or, a lot of times I see it a lot when people go through a big change of like hair color,
Mhm.
and then all of a
Yeah,
sudden
all of your lipstick, you have to change all your lipstick shades
they're
now because
null and
you have
void
new.
now. What do you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Tim, thank you so much for joining me. This has been super insightful, and we
Of
love coming
course.
to you for makeup advice, and you're a legend. So, always happy to have time with you. Thank you so. You need to do a book. Absolutely. But in the meantime, I'm sure I'll see you in Palm Beach or in South Florida or running around and, sharing your talents with everyone. Thank you so much. Until next time.